Well, back in the day when I tried to take Thor Skywalker seriously, I tried to wade through the videos, but increasingly, they're not making any sense. They have no real point. This one is another pointless one where he goes through the poll he put up whether Kenobi was the worst series. Interestingly, even his own votes say the majority thought it was okay to good, but he concentrates on, of course, the negative and says, well, this still is a really bad series. I don't like it. I'm not going to rewatch it. But when he reads the comments of people disagreeing with him, he's not very intelligible.
Great time with the show. It's nowhere perfect, but the world is terrible enough for me to agonize over fine details of a fictional universe. I understand lore is important to many, but to me, I enjoy Star Wars for its characters and immersing in a fantasy world, not for immaculate historical / lore consistency and flawless logic. I can see how others don't enjoy it as much.
So let me just go through this a little quickly in terms of logic, because I think it's a very confusing subject. And I'm working on this on separate subjects. So let's take Jurassic Park. Let's say at the very end, the T-Rex does not make any sense. Like just how the T-Rex enters and makes that big shouting noise, and you're like, wait, how could the T-Rex not make any noise before entering? I don't know. It's not a logical problem. You can use the word logic if you mean it rhetorically, like that makes no logical sense. But when you think it through, that can't be correct. Like, is the T-Rex capable of logical thinking? No. Is any logical equation at play? No. It's not like the T-Rex is violating the law of non-contradiction. They're not violating a mathematical rule. It's just that as a physical creature, it's not acting as expected. It's an issue of being reasonable. It's not reasonable for me to expect the T-Rex to come in there silent. It obviously made a lot of noise. So that the scene doesn't show that says something is off. So just that point about flawless logic doesn't make any sense. What is the flawless logic of cinematography? If you could show that, I'd be impressed. And in terms of the lore violations, well, the person seems to assume there were lore violations. Thor Skywalker really doesn't name any. In fact, then he contradicts himself later when discussing how one of the character dies.
And Leia, the Inquisitors, we know their fates. Therefore, they were never in true danger.
Yeah, that's another problem. Most of the characters in here, we knew, they couldn't die or how the story would work out for them. And so the few characters that were new, Tala being a perfect example, you kind of felt if anybody's going to die, if they were going to try to go for like an emotional or impactful death, these are the characters they would, of course, use. I was waiting the whole series for Tala to die, and then she kind of has this odd death where she has a thermal detonator, and instead of throwing it earlier, she decides to basically blow herself up with it, along with some Imperials, of course. So that is one of the biggest problems. You have that problem all the time with prequels. You know how it's going to end.
So he's having it both ways. He's saying, yeah, Kenobi, it really disturbed the canon. And then says, no, they couldn't violate the canon because this was in the middle. So we had to have certain stories end a certain way. But here I would disagree with even the positive comments. Let's think about that. Really, could they do nothing? Well, no. With the Inquisitors, technically, they don't exist in the first film. They could have killed off all the Inquisitors, period. It wouldn't affect the first film. Also with Kenobi, Kenobi could be extremely, extremely injured. We never see him take off his clothes. For all we know, his body is scarred with tons of wounds. They could have a really awesome death match between him and Vader where he sustains tons of injuries. They didn't choose to do that. So I find it really puzzling. A lot of people who didn't like Kenobi said it had, quote, poor logic. What does that mean? Do you understand what the word logic means? I understand if you mean the word logic rhetorically. You can say that all the time. I can say it. Like, oh, The Last Jedi made low logical sense. But if you had to seriously answer that question, you sound like a fucking idiot. What do you mean by logic? Please explain what you mean by logic. And then it breaks down. It's like, they're not really using the word logic. So why'd you even use the word then? And it's like, we're going in a circle. It's because this is a buzz term to say what you want to say in order to put out a hate video to make money. And I find Thor Skywalker especially annoying because he keeps bringing this thing about, hey guys, let's talk about God and family and Star Wars and the family entertainment and what it means to the next generation and storytelling and the Duke and the Vader, blah, 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 blah. Who the hell cares? What does this have to do with anything? This is a very right-wing conservative vision of Star Wars. You can have that vision. That's not in the story. Let's say I read a story about Darth Maul, which is extremely dark, where he just kills a bunch of people. That's not family entertainment. It's still a Star Wars story. It's a legitimate Star Wars story. But he keeps framing everything as this weirdo, oh, I just want to get away from the world, guys. I just want to curl up with my family and debate the Star Wars. Why? Why would you do that? The whole point of Star Wars, to George Lucas, was to comment on real-world events. So you're just acting like an ignorant fool, an idiot. You're just not making any sense. On the one hand, you're complaining, yeah, definitely, Kenobi violated the canon. Oh, yeah, they had this minor character died because it wouldn't affect the canon. So do they care about the canon, or do they not care about the canon? Is there a story logic, or is there not a story logic? If there is a story logic, prove it. Provide actual real evidence. If you're just using these words rhetorically, yeah, guys, they really violate the canon. How? How did they do that? Okay, they really didn't violate the canon. Okay, fine. What about the story logic? Yeah, it's story logic. They had zero story logic. Really? Okay, fine. Give us this objective measurement of story logic. Prove, like a mathematical equation, Kenobi had zero story logic. Do that. Can he do it? He hasn't done it in any of these videos. And I looked at some of them. He's just being a moron all the time. It's like, what was the point of this video? It just seems to be a big circle with his followers. Like, Star Wars is about family and hope and sacrifice and the story beats and the canon. No, Star Wars is just a space fantasy that is an allegory about political events. That's what it is. You can take it in different directions. It's not promising you to be a family silly adventure story about hope and honor or sacrifice. That may be one story. There are other stories to tell. Maybe open up your mind for once. And there we are with Thor Skywalker, constantly pumping out weirdo conservative propaganda, I guess, for reasons.